Jasmine Carter stood in disbelief as she watched federal agents board the plane. The flight attendant, the one who had humiliated her just minutes before, turned pale as a sheet. "Ma'am, we need everyone to deplane immediately," an agent announced. Jasmine clutched her foster daughter Zoe's hand, a chill running down her spine. One phone call. That's all it took. And now, everything was about to change. Before I take you deeper into this story, I need to ask you something. Have you ever witnessed discrimination? Or maybe even stood up for yourself or someone else in the face of injustice? If you have, hit that like button and subscribe, because today's story is all about resilience, family, and one call that turned a nightmare into a national conversation. Let me take you back to that moment, when a routine flight became a battleground. It started like any other trip. Jasmine, a 34-year-old marketing executive from Atlanta, had everything planned out for her and her foster daughter Zoe's first flight together. It was supposed to be simple. A short trip from Atlanta to Chicago to visit Jasmine's mother, Grandma Evelyn. Zoe had been in Jasmine's care for just 3 months, and this was a special moment for them both. The kind of trip every foster mom dreams of. "All set, sweetheart?" Jasmine asked, looking down at Zoe, who was clinging to her stuffed elephant, Ellie. Zoe nodded, clutching her unicorn backpack tightly, her blonde hair poking out from under her pink hat. The contrast between them was obvious. Jasmine with her deep brown skin and natural curls, Zoe with her fair complexion and blonde hair. But Jasmine had long since gotten used to looks from strangers. The whispers. The assumption that she couldn't possibly be Zoe's mother. "Remember, we're going to see Grandma Evelyn, and she can't wait to meet you," Jasmine said, keeping her voice steady. But inside, she was nervous. She'd been a foster parent for only a short time, and while she'd prepared for a lot of challenges, she hadn't anticipated this. The world wasn't always kind to families that didn't fit into society's narrow ideas of what a real family looked like. Jasmine had grown up in foster care herself, bouncing between 6 different homes before she turned 18. She knew the importance of stability, and after building a solid career and a home of her own, she felt ready to give back. She had completed all the necessary training, passed background checks, and jumped through every hoop the system had set up for potential foster parents. When Zoe's case came through, Jasmine didn't hesitate. She knew the importance of providing a stable home, a place of love and safety. What she didn't expect was what she was about to face when they stepped into the airport. They had a small delay getting to the airport. Holiday traffic had clogged the streets, and Jasmine could feel the tension in her chest growing as the minutes ticked by. Zoe's excitement was starting to slip into anxiety. When they finally arrived at Hartsfield-Jackson International, Jasmine tried to keep her cool. She didn't want Zoe to feel any more stressed than she already was. As they walked through the terminal, dragging their matching luggage behind them, Jasmine felt those familiar eyes on her. A middle-aged white woman nudged her husband, glancing back and forth between Jasmine and Zoe. An elderly man frowned, his gaze lingering on them for too long. A security guard watched them closely, following their every move. Jasmine had learned to deal with these moments standing taller, maintaining direct eye contact, and carrying herself with confidence. But this time, it wasn't easy. It was Zoe's first flight, and all Jasmine wanted was for them to have a peaceful experience, not to have to explain their relationship to strangers. By the time they reached the Superior Airways check-in counter, Jasmine's nerves were on edge. She presented their documents and tickets, smiling politely at the agent, a thin white man named Bradley. He glanced at them and then back at the computer screen, taking his time with their check-in. "And your relationship to the minor?" he asked, his tone a little too cold. "I'm her foster mother," Jasmine replied, already reaching for the stack of documents she had prepared for moments like this. "I have all our paperwork right here." Bradley raised an eyebrow but didn't respond. Instead, he began to pick through the paperwork, examining each document with deliberate slowness. "I'll need to see proof of guardianship, authorization for travel, and the minor's birth certificate." Jasmine felt her frustration bubbling up. "Actually, that's not correct. For foster children, the authorization comes from the Child Welfare Agency, not from the biological parents." Bradley paused, staring at her for a long moment. Then he sighed. "It's company policy," he said, his tone firm. "No, it's not," Jasmine replied, her marketing executive voice coming out, steady and professional. I confirmed this with your customer Sarah VYC last week. The documentation I've pro VY dead exceeds the requirements. Bradley stared at her, unblinking, before picking up his phone. Let me speak to my super VY sore, he said, and Jasmine's heart sank. They stood there for what felt like hours, Zoe tugging on Jasmine's sleeve, asking if they were going to be okay. Jasmine knelt down to comfort her, assuring her that they were still going to see Grandma Evelyn. But the knot in her stomach kept tightening. Minutes passed, and just when Jasmine thought they might be stuck in the airport all day, a woman in a more senior uniform approached. Diana Mercer, the super VY soar, took a quick look at their paperwork and smiled. Everything's in perfect order, Miss Carter, she said, and Jasmine sighed in relief. But before they could move on, Jasmine noticed Bradley whispering to a flight attendant, a tall blonde woman named Victoria. Jasmine's unease grew. She had seen the way Victoria looked at her, and Zoe like they were out of place. When they finally reached the gate, things went from bad to worse. Victoria, the same flight attendant from earlier, blocked their way. This boarding group is for families with young children, she said, her eyes scanning Jasmine and Zoe's faces. Jasmine's stomach dropped. She knew the policy. We qualify for family boarding, Jasmine said calmly. My daughter is 8. Victoria raised an eyebrow, her gaze flicking between Jasmine and Zoe. Your daughter? The pause was noticeable. The policy is for children under 6. Jasmine was about to respond when a voice interrupted. A man in a business suit stepped forward, his Superior Airways Platinum membership card VY Cybele in his hand. I overheard, he said, his voice warm but firm. The family boarding policy includes children up to 12 during holiday travel periods. I fly this route weekly. Perhaps you should double-check the policy. Victoria hesitated, clearly caught off guard. She reluctantly stepped aside and allowed Jasmine and Zoe to proceed. Once on the plane, Jasmine thought they could finally relax, but she quickly realized things weren't as simple as they seemed. The flight attendants, led by Victoria, were still watching them closely, scrutinizing their every move. Jasmine tried to remain calm, but Zoe could feel the tension. She started to withdraw into herself, her usual excitement fading into anxiety. When they reached their seats, Zoe clutched her stuffed elephant tightly, her eyes darting around the cabin. Jasmine tried to comfort her, offering her noise-canceling headphones to help with the sensory overload. But just as she thought things were settling down, Victoria appeared again, her gaze cold and scrutinizing. When the beverage Sarah VYC began, Victoria stood at the front of the cabin, watching Jasmine and Zoe carefully. When Jasmine pressed the call button for water, Victoria immediately responded. We're preparing for takeoff, she said, her tone cold. This button is for emergencies only. My daughter needs some water. She's anxious, Jasmine explained. Victoria barely looked at Zoe. We can't serve beverages until we reach cruising altitude. Company policy. The small kindness from the flight attendants had already felt like a distant memory. Jasmine could feel the situation escalating. Zoe's breathing quickened, her panic attack threatening to take hold. When Victoria approached again, Jasmine snapped. Is this about race? Jasmine asked, her voice steady but firm. Is that what you're really questioning here? That my foster daughter and I don't look the same? Victoria froze, her expression faltering for just a moment. Jasmine had called it out, and for the first time, the flight attendant had nothing to say. Jasmine reached out for help. A quick text to Ayana, a CIVYL rights attorney she knew, and everything changed. Within minutes, Jasmine's phone buzzed. Ayana was on the case. By the time the plane landed, security was waiting for them on the ground. What was supposed to be a simple flight had turned into something far more complicated. Jasmine and Zoe were met by federal agents, and Victoria's job was on the line. The flight was grounded. And while Jasmine had been scared, she knew this wasn't just about her or Zoe. This was about something bigger. The investigation into Victoria's BHA VY, had only just begun, but one thing was for sure. Jasmine was no longer going to let this go. She'd fought for her family's dignity, and now, she was going to make sure no one else had to fight the same fight. The story didn't end with just one call. It was a moment that sparked change, and it was a VY story that Jasmine, Zoe, and so many other families would carry with them for years to come. What do you think about what happened on this flight? Have you ever had to fight against injustice like this? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button if you believe families deserve respect, and subscribe for more powerful stories like this one.